doing. Hi, this is Dave Farmer. We're going to be doing a webinar today on GPH Irrigation, which are manufacturers of drip irrigation products and emitters, which is interesting to me because they have options to the basically same old thing. And it's nice to see what other options are available out there. I'm going to show you what I like about them when I go to use them on a project and show you how to use them. And I'm going to turn this over first to a fellow named Travis Kamara, who is president of GPH Irrigation, and he's going to explain why GPH Irrigation is special from other types of irrigation systems.
All right. Thank you, Dave. My name is Travis Kamara. Been with GPH. Actually, we founded it. But historically, the team at GPH has actually owned Salco products. And so we have kind of come up through the ranks of the irrigation industry. And our product is exclusively designed for really rugged commercial applications. And so we do make drip irrigation, but it has been designed specifically for landscape applications, and more specifically, areas that are highly trafficked, center median type installations where potentially people are driving over them and causing damage. So even though we do manufacture drip irrigation, it's a little bit different than what you might find at the retail level or historically with some of the commercial product available. A really good example of that are our emitters. I'm on our website now, and it's a good resource to kind of learn about the product, but also commercial applications where drip really excels at that historically haven't been considered for drip. An example, of a really rugged product is our threaded emitters. So this product is a half-inch threaded inlet emitter that could be installed on a rigid PVC system or a flexible PVC system using pipe threaded product. It's kind of outside the norm where getting away from the polyethylene tubing and the punch-in emitters or the polyethylene tubing and the inline emitters. This particular product looks like a bubbler, but it does have flow rates of 1/2 gallon an hour to 4 gallon an hour in the drip range, and then we also manufacture it in high flow ranges as well, ranging from 1/4 gallon a minute to 2 gallons a minute. We have a new product that we introduced a couple months ago. It is actually our the same emitter, but with a check valve built into it, and it's actually a true spring check valve, and it has a 4 psi cracking pressure, so it'll maintain 4 psi in your line at all times. And this has a couple benefits. The first benefit is it eliminates back siphoning into your line, which is the #1 reason that emitters clog. It isn't necessarily the water quality as much as it is any debris or dirt that actually gets sucked back into the line and then finds its way to the emitter control element and ends up clogging it there. So that's the first benefit of the checking system, but also it maintains a ton of water. It actually eliminates the loss of water to low head drainage. So it's kind of one of those things where as irrigation managers, we're not necessarily concerning ourselves with how much it takes, how much water it takes to fill a system before we start using that water for irrigation. And it's significant, especially in commercial applications. It's difficult to put a quantity on an average system, but it's 10 to 20 gallons on a small commercial system, and even more obviously on larger systems. So it is a significant amount of water on every single cycle that's saved. Another product that we're really known for is our flexible PVC hose and tubing. This is a really heavy wall product. It solvent welds just like regular PVC pipe, so it doesn't require any special fittings. It's available in 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch standard Schedule 40, Schedule 80 fittings. The only difference is we recommend using IPS 795 solvent cement, and as far as the welding techniques, they're identical to standard welding techniques. We have a brand new product we just came out with. We call it our sticky stripe, and in the picture it's a little bit difficult to see. I'll enlarge it here, but this orange stripe is actually a high viscosity PVC, so it actually acts as a catalyst when solvent is applied to speed up the solvent breakdown of the plastic before it's introduced to the fitting, so it provides a much better weld. In a perfect welding situation where the installing contractor uses just the right amount of primer, the temperature is perfect, his welding techniques are perfect, it's gonna provide an equally strong weld. But anytime one of those variables changes, where maybe it's a little bit colder than the solvent's recommended use, the contractor, or the lack of primer, maybe the solvent is a little bit congealed and is a little bit older than it should be, the sticky stripe is really going to ensure a proper weld. Of course we don't recommend using, installing the product that way, but in the real world we found that it's pretty common where, guys that have 20 years of experience, are still kind of trying to cut corners sometimes in the gluing process. And here's another picture of the actual stripe, and they're 180 degrees from each other. I'm sorry, yeah, 180 degrees from each other, and so with the twisting action, it does kind of wipe that catalyst around the whole diameter of the hose, or circumference of the hose. We do manufacture a full line of drip products, so we have stream bubblers, high flow bubblers, the micro bubblers as we call them with the 1/2 inch thread, also available with the check valve. We have standard emitters. We call these single outlet emitters. We offer these in a few different configurations. We have them with the micro threaded inlet, so you could install them on rigid PVC pipe or in high density polyethylene pipe. Then we also have them designed with a diffuser cap, so if you want to actually put these right at the plant's root zone, it helps it helps to eliminate some of that back siphoning, but also keeps bugs from crawling into it. A unique feature about our products, all of our emitters are available in camouflage, which kind of sounds a little bit gimmicky, but in high-profile projects we found that quite a few architects and irrigation designers like the ability to have the product above grade and still have it blend in nicely with the landscape. And we offer them in a desert camo and a mulch camo. The desert camo has it's matched with kind of a desert gold rock that's really popular in the Southwest, even down to the little silver sparkles that are in the rock. And then our mulch camo, pretty much straightforward there. It matches regular mulch ground cover. And again, the camo colors are available in all of our emitters and bubblers. That's unique to our product line. We do manufacture standard polyethylene style hose that is pretty common to regular drip applications. Our prices in the marketplace tend to be a hair lower than the Rainbird and Toro Netafim offerings. But we are specifically focused on landscape irrigation, and really focus of the company is really on quality. Half of our business at GPH is manufacturing for other manufacturers. So even if you may not have used our GPH product before, chances are you've used a product that we've manufactured for one of the 43 companies that we make product for in the irrigation industry. On our website, we have a full detail list for pretty much all, not all obviously, but many of the common applications for drip available in AutoCAD. However, they're also available in PDF format under the all installation details. So under this zip file, it has all the AutoCAD format as well as PDF formats. And then we have our specification book available online as well. And then any cut sheets, specific cut sheets for products. We have a product catalog that's downloadable. And what we found is that contractors who come across specifications in the bidding process or in the actual pre-construction process really find some of these documents useful as they kind of map out how they're going to install the product. Again, I mentioned quality, and our mission statement is here. And other than that, I think I'm going to pass it back to Dave.
Well, before you go, I would like to ask you a question, Travis.
Sure.
You mentioned Salco. What is this? I had no idea that there was some relation to Salco. What is sort of the story behind that?
Okay. Shelley Walker and I met Sam Toby at a trade show when we were in college at Cal Poly Pomona. Sam Toby is the founder of Salco, and he founded the company in '67. And at that time, there wasn't a very large market for drip irrigation and landscape, but it was huge in agriculture, even going back that far. And so the product was kind of tailored towards agriculture. So throughout the '70s, Salco was really heavily involved in agriculture, and in the early '80s, Sam saw an opportunity in landscape, and he kind of reinvented the company towards landscape irrigation. And Shelley and I met him at a trade show, as I mentioned, in the mid '90s, and we got together in the late '90s and actually bought half of Salco then, and had the tremendous opportunity to be trained by him, until he passed away in 2002. And at that time, we bought the remaining shares from his wife, and we ran the company until 2007, when we sold it to Weathermatic. And in 2008, Shelley and I and our team bought we worked together with Weathermatic to kind of split amicably, and we founded GPH with what we had learned from Sam and from our time at Salco, and also had an opportunity to kind of develop some new products specifically towards the commercial landscape market.
I find it interesting because I remember, I've been personally licensed since '82. I used to use Salco all the time for drip irrigation because I just kept hearing what a high quality product it was. There's, and again, like you said, there wasn't much out there at that time in the early years, and Salco was, in my mind, the foundation, the industry standard at the time for drip irrigation. And as I got busier and started getting involved with land effects and getting away from the minutia of specifying exactly, I always sort of wondered, where did Salco go?
Yeah.
And now I'm finding out. I didn't even know this. I'm finding out now. Here's where Salco went, right?
Yeah, they do. Salco is still around, but we were really fortunate to put together our team at GPH with, a ton of the people we worked with at Salco. And so in one sense, you're exactly right, Dave, that here's where Salco is, but Salco is still around, and they're still manufacturing product. But we have kind of pushed forward with some new products since we have departed, and also in the recently with the new sticky stripe as well as the check valve emitters.
Yeah, I think the check valve emitter is one I want to use on this example. Also, you mentioned the sticky stripe, the PVC flex hose. I don't know if you exactly mentioned it. I was intrigued as you were talking about it. What are the specific uses for that particular pipe?
It's a great question, Dave. That particular pipe is used in a couple of different applications. The first is actually just like regular polyethylene drip hose, where you lay it right on grade and then you punch your emitters in, and you have the opportunity to kind of snake it through the landscape with the emitter right at the plant, or you can come off of the emitter with microtubing to the plant. Or you can, its popular use is solvent welding fittings, male adapters onto it, and coming off of a rigid system with the thread-on emitters.
So a riser, essentially.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And there's another question, Travis. There's a client who asked if you could show the pictures of the camo colors.
Oh, you know what? If you want to shoot me an email, I will send it over. I don't believe we have any pictures online of the camo colors.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I think the question is really valid. As I was watching this, I was thinking, let me see. You have camo, you have this, you have that. Well, let's see those colors.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So you really should get it somewhere. Here what we mean by the color. The camo color actually appeals to me as a designer. I wish the pipe were camel colored, actually.
Yeah, you know what, Dave? I might be able to pull a couple up quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If you had something you wanted to cover, I could.
Yeah, you know what? When we're done with this, I'll start in my thing. Why don't you go ahead and get that together, and then you make a break in my thing. If it's going to take you a few minutes to find just the right image.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and
let's see if anybody else had a question before we leave you.
There are no other questions. I have seen the camo, the desert and mulch colors, and they are very nice. So.
Yeah, I really actually am joining our client with that question. It intrigues me, the camel color, quite frankly. Anything to make drip irrigation, more camouflaged. That sounds great to me.
I've got a quick story about that. Shelly and I are married, and she came up with that concept a couple years ago, and we have these marketing meetings once a month, and she brought it up and wanted me to figure out how we could make the product. And after 3 months of just kind of pushing it aside, she started bringing the question home with her, like, hey, when are you going to get this done? We need to get this done. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, this is really kind of, gimmicky. It seems a little bit, kind of, a little bit cheesy, for lack of a better term. But I ended up working with a plastic color engineer to develop the colors, and just so I could kind of appease her. And right out of the gate, we ended up selling more of the camouflage colors than we did the standard colors. And so I haven't heard the end of that in a few years. So.
Yes, you won't hear the end of that. However, being married, it really is no one else offers anything like that. And it's not like profound and like, oh, this is who would have thunk, but think about it. Nobody else has offered that, and it always, since I started experimenting with your product, that's the one thing that sort of kind of slapped me. Oh, camo, that sounds pretty cool. Again, I want to say, if the pipe could be camo, I'm sure that's virtually impossible, but
No, it's anything's possible. I think keeping the cost under control might be difficult on the pipe, but
yeah, I don't know.
who knows? We'll figure it out.
Every as a consumer, and I'm driving around and stuff, and I see this above grade drip where they haven't put mulch over it either yet, or they're just not going to put mulch over it. I go, boy, that is not handsome. Seeing all that pipe snaking through the ground, it's really contrasting to the earth tone of the ground. It's black, and and I don't know if it's just me, but it's the ugly part of this drip irrigation. And if it were Camo, I think you go, look, if you want Camo, you just got to pay a little bit more. You might be surprised, In fact, you might be surprised if agencies end up requiring it,
Yeah.
in a way, just to make, I mean, that's the kind of thing they would be interested in. So anyway.
I hope none of our competitors are listening in.
Okay. You know what? You get the jump on them. So
there you
that's
go.
all I can say. But, okay, what I'm going to do is take over, and then why don't you dig up those images of the Camo? And let me click show my screen.
Absolutely.
And I'll get my AutoCAD up here. And what I'm going to show is how to utilize your products with Land Effects. And I'm going to pipe in where I think there's a superiority of your product over at least some of the competition that I'm familiar with on here. And then I'll take a break and let you come in on that. So everyone can see my screen, and what I've got is basically an AutoCAD screen. Here's my site. I have defined the areas, I'll click on one, with a polyline that are going to get drip. In this case, all the areas are going to get drip, but it could be a mix of drip and spray and stuff like that. When I say drip, I want to define our particular terminology. This is how we say is area for drip emitters. In other words, I don't want to show every single emitter into my drawing. I want to make my graphics simpler. But it's kind of a typical situation where there is above grade or below grade, and that is debatable which one is the best to do. If it's above grade, as this is showing, I think it might behoove you to put mulch on top of it. If it's below grade, I think the danger is some maintenance guy with a shovel could hit it and not know it. But that's up to the individual. What this is basically showing is I've got this above grade stuff. It does have staking. Here's what the staking is. Here's typically how I'm putting these emitters. In other words, in this little example, the emitters are on little stakes of some sort. But that is what we call area for drip emitters. Another way to do drip emitters is individual emitters. Commonly in the desert, Palm Desert, in Vegas, that sort of thing, the sun would eat up alive any above grade stuff. So you hard pipe. This case it's showing some flexible riser with an emitter at the end of it. However, the thing that Travis was showing you hard piped would be, in my mind, a way better solution because while some people use this little flexible pipe, I think bad little children could come along and really whack them up and cause some damage. A hard pipe would be a much more Cadillac kind of system, and does appeal to me, the hard piping. So, but that's another way, individual emitters, where you're going to see a symbol for every single emitter, and I'll add some of those in because you can mix these up, because it very well could be that you have an area for emitters, but within that area you specifically want to show some individual emitters and maybe even pipe them separately or not pipe them separately, but this is a different way to show it. Other things that we have that doesn't really apply with necessarily with GPH, although it kind of could, is custom. You can make a custom emitter. In this case, this is tree rings with drip line. Let's say using individual single outlet emitters, such as GPHs, you have a ring and you have a certain number of emitters spaced along this pipe, and this pipe is staked so that you have this vision of this set thing, but it's a complex thing. It's made of a lot of different stuff, and let's say you were using 1 GPH emitters and you got 8 of them. That's a total of 8 GPH. So if you add a custom, you assign how much GPH you expect from it. I think you would associate with a detail, which would be your custom detail like this, and it will give it a unique symbol. So you can use custom. So we have area for drip emitters, we have individual emitters, we have individual custom emitters, and then the last thing we have is drip line, which is very different than individual emitters. There's built-in emitters along the line, and you space those uniformly within the project. Other things that I'm going to be adding on here is just to keep our terminology squared away, a drip control valve, which is, in my mind, really kind of like a kit. It's a combination of valve, filter, and pressure regulator all in one, and we call that a drip valve kit. We do not allow or have built into our system, oh, I want this particular valve, this particular filter, and this particular pressure regulator. It gets wildly complex. However, if you have a drip system that has really a large amount of volume to it, and you want a bigger valve that just simply is not offered, that's fine. Go to regular remote control valves and add, let's say, even 1.5 inches, it's going to be 1.5 inch valve, and you have this, you just add it and then edit its description to say, and it's going to have this filter and this pressure regulator. So you can transcend above, but I'm going to add a GPH filter and pressure regulator, but it's going to have a certain, they don't make the valve, so it's going to have a valve that they recommend that could go with it on that. Or you can add from another manufacturer, you know, this kit basically here. But you see this pipe is leaving the valve below grade. It doesn't necessarily have to. I think that's kind of typical because you have a valve and your planted areas are not always conveniently right there where the valve is. There could be individual planters off to the side, could be islands in places. So typically I find it is more convenient to leave that valve underground and then pop up occasionally and what I call transition to above grade piping, and there's a couple of ways you can do a transition. So we call this pipe transition point. You can show these with land effects or not. That's your choice. I like showing them because this first one here is kind of expensive. It's in a box. It has some gravel. The idea is that if these bad little children come along and destroy the irrigation, they're only destroying the amount that leave, you know, this one leg right here, hopefully, before somebody chases them off. And so it wouldn't, you can, the maintenance people can go back to this location and rebuild it without having to rebuild everything. So I tend to show them where I want them. Maybe they're 30 or 40 feet apart, something like that. But you don't have to. But just to keep that terminology in, we call that pipe transition point. Somewhere, somehow, there's a flush valve at the end of a drip thing, so you can open it up and flush out the debris. That's your choice. But you can add a flush valve and get a symbol for it and place them on the drawing where you think is most appropriate for them, so you're assured that they're going to be in the system. Drip air relief valve is probably not necessary unless you're using drip line, and then some drip line that's above grade doesn't need an air relief valve, but you know, that's part of ELSIFAR terminology. So let's add some of this product in there. I've started a project. I'm going to go to the manager for irrigation for that project and go over to drip. I've added one thing so far to this, that pipe transition point. I just simply went to that category, and let's look at the categories. Here's pipe transition point. But you can add a control valve or any one of these things. So let's add a control valve. I'll go ahead and say add. There's GPH and other manufacturers that have control valves for drip. They actually have a couple going on here, but they're not really valves. It's really using the GPH filter and pressure regulator with a valve. I'm going to go to this 3/4 inch just to see. Well, let me go back for a second and add that again. Whoops, now I'm you can see it's from 0 to 7 GPM is what the flow range. And anytime, anywhere that we're listing a drip control valve, we like indicating what the manufacturer indicates as the flow range. It's not really the valve, it's the other equipment that's attached to the valve that might have this limitation. So it reminds you there of what the flow range, and it really should remind you in here. I know we were tinkering with this yesterday in its description, but I have, this is now, GPH doesn't make a control valve, so they recommended the Irritrol 700 or the Rainbird 75 DV. So we're putting in, you know, one of those products with the GPH filter and pressure regulator. I'll pick the Rainbird, heck. Say add it. So I've added the drip control valve. Now let me go and add another product. We've added the transition point. You can add a flush valve. I'm going to pretend we did, sort of. You know, I'm going to beat through there. Now let's add an individual emitter. And this individual emitter is going to have its own symbol. And maybe you don't even want those. You really want this area for drip emitters, but I'm going to add both of those in. So let's add an individual drip emitter. And I'm going to go over to GPH here, and they have a variety of types. And the one that intrigued me as Travis was talking was this guy right here. So I'm going to click on that. That's got a 1/2-inch pipe. It's also got, as he was showing the images, this check valve, which I always love check valves because you know life is on undulating terrain, and if you have even a 3 or 4 foot distance in a planted area, when the valve shuts off, all the water in the system is going to go down to the low valves and it's going to flow out. That's bad for wasting water. Nobody likes to waste water. It's bad because the water flows out of the system, and when it fires up again, there's air in the system. So there's going to be an impact on it, and your system's going to more or less wear out if you do that. So check valves are really cool. And there's my desert camel color. So I'm going to add that guy in, give it a design pressure. I'm going to say whatever you want, 20, 30. Don't, just because 40 is available or 50 or 60, which are not on this, you can see what's available 10 to 40, doesn't mean go to the highest one. It means that's what I'm expecting that valve to produce. So it could be 20 is very appropriate for that, even though 30 and 40 is indicated. So I've added it on there. And what I've added is, I'll say show components, I added a 5, a 1/2, a 1, a 2, and a 4 GPH. And this is where, in using the GPH product, that, which, of course, GPH, where it kind of intrigued me because I know I've used other products and they have a 1/2, a 1, and a 2. And I've always felt, man, that I wish they had a little bit bigger one, you know. And I know other manufacturers have different kind of ranges, but what I like about the GPH product is it's got the 4 in there, because I want to water from a 1-gallon plant. And you know, when the 1-gallon plant is first going in the ground, it's pretty teeny. I don't want to really overly flood that thing, all the way up to maybe a 36-inch box or something tree, very big tree. And so, man, I got quite a range I have to respond to. And so this gives me a little more flexibility. I like the idea of that 4 GPH option on there. So that's how you add a drip emitter. You just simply go and add the emitter, and we're going to get an individual symbol for that. Kind of place it in a couple of ways. I'm going to go to add for this last thing, area for drip emitters. And remember, this is going to be a mass area. I'm not going to show all the emitters. I'm just going to be looking at the mass area, but I'm going to show you how it figures out what the flow is. Again, I'm going to go to GPH. And this time I think, just for the heck of it, I'm going to pick this guy right here and see what the options are. And the option I want is this 1032 thread. It's really fine micro thread. It can go and thread into this sort of 1/4-inch spaghetti tubing that may come out of the main 1/2-inch tubing. Plus, maybe it's staked. So often I'll stake that little spaghetti tubing and just keep it a fairly short length. I'm not crazy about the spaghetti tubing, but sometimes you have to use it. What I do like are these stakes that you can now screw this onto. So I'm going to go for this 1032, and I'm going to go for the Camo Desert. And I'm looking over all the different options here. You know what else I want? I want this diffuser cap. I know Travis mentioned, oh, that's good, you know, to diffuse it and let bugs not crawl in there. I think it's real important. It really does, especially if you're using that 4 GPH. 4 GPH is not a huge amount of water, but it's pretty good. And I like the idea of diffusing it, and I really like the idea of keeping the bugs out myself. So I'm going to go with this one, this 1032 micro thread, a diffuser cap, and Desert Camo. And I'll add that to my project and give it a design pressure that I want the minimum pressure that to get. Now, here's what's different about adding an area for drip emitters versus an individual emitters is on my project I got plants too, and they're of different container sizes, and what I'm going to be doing is assigning what kind of emitter and how many I want to each container size. Now, it very well could be you end up looking just like this. I've got 1 gallon through 15 gallon of B&B, which is a palm tree and all this stuff, but only the 1 gallons are getting drip. Well, that's fine. Just go to the 1 gallon, because I'm not putting drip to the flats, period. I personally don't. I would use drip line or some other system to irrigate flatted ground cover, but certainly 1 gallons, what is it going to be? And I can expand this list of emitter type, and it says a half through a 4. Well, I'm going to go to a half. Now, you got to have a number. If you don't have a number, it's going to be 0, and as we all know, 0 times anything is 0, so it's not going to show any flow. All of them are 0 right off the bat. And so the number of emitters could be 1. I think I've, in talking with other irrigation designers, a consensus is you should have at least 2 emitters per plant, no matter how small the plant, because otherwise the emitter is only on 1/2 of the plant, and depending on the soil type, it's kind of like here's all the water on 1/2, the other half isn't getting much of anything, and the plant's not a happy camper. And there's an element of logic to that. So I'm going to give this particular 1 gallon plant a half at 2 GPH. And that may be all I do. The rest of these are all going to get 0, so they won't be counted in. And I got my plants in here, and I'm going to show you that. But in this case, I'm going to give it the 5 gallon. And just to kind of bump up my flow, I'm going to give it a 2 GPH and give it 2 emitters. A 15 gallon, I'm going to give a 4 GPH, and let's say 4 emitters, something like that. I'm not really thinking carefully of what the combination is. Obviously, I'm going to run this valve for a certain period of time, and I want to make sure all the plants are going to be getting the amount of water they should, so I've got to think this out a little bit better, and I'm frankly not. I'm just randomly doing this. But that's what they're going to get. Each plant container size is going to get what I'm indicating here. So I say, okay, and I've added that particular area for drip emitters in it, and we're pretty much done. We've added a control valve. If you wanted a transition point, go ahead. If you want individual emitters shown, and there's a couple of ways to do it, go ahead, and then area for drip emitters. And I've added all that stuff to my project. Now let me put it into my drawing, and let me show you on this drawing what this drawing is. I'm going to turn on a view state. This is an external reference of the planting plan. You don't have to make it an external reference. It's smart. The planting plan on a fresh drawing is the external reference for the base for the irrigation. What that external reference gives you is if you make changes to the original planting plan, add, delete plants, that sort of thing, of course when you load up the irrigation plan, since that is the reference for it, any changes will be reflected in here. But it's not directly in the drawing, it's in the external reference. That's good in our mind. All you do here is you just go and you just start freezing layers until what you get, at least I would do this, or you could gray out the plants because you could, you know, from layer control. I tend to simply freeze them. They're gone. But the thing about that external reference, the site was in as a reference to the planting plan, so the site is still here. I just cannot see, and you can turn off layers or you can freeze, and it's easier for me to freeze the layers because I click on a tree and all the trees go away, a shrub, a label, and boom, in about 8 seconds I end up with this on here. But I have defined these areas with a polyline on any layer that I want. So now let me put some of these things in there. What I'm going to click on is placing head/emitter. It's both. It used to be different in our system. That's how we do drip now, because an emitter really technically is a head, and I get a floating toolbar. First half of it is for spray heads, other type of heads right in here, such as rotors and bubblers and that sort of thing. And right there is drip. Now the first one is area for drip emitters. So I click on that. There's my GPH with that one. And by the way, you could have multiple of these. You just don't have to have one type. So there's my GPH. I say place. I get a pick box. I click on one of these bounding lines, and what happens is that bounding line gets converted to a particular layer that is dashed. It's going to print halftone, but fairly thick. Then it fills it with a hatch pattern to let you know what the area is, but that hatch pattern is halftone. So if you draw pipes in there, they're going to pop out. They're going to stand out. And I'm picking up all the plants in there from the XREF, or if they were within the drawing, from the drawing. So I just go along and click, and there are some individual areas here, and I want to be sure and click on some of these so I can kind of get some gallonage going on here. And by the way, that bounding line could have a polyline with an arc. It could be straight polylines, whatever you need on there. So I'm just going to go along and pick all these, a few of these things on here. Let's say that right there is what I'm picking. So you pick these areas, and then you're going to do this. You're going to go to our circuit command, and you're going to do a flow total. That's this button right down here, because I want to see what I've got for a total flow. I'll drop that in. I have a total flow of 17 GPM. And remember that valve that we added, whether it was a GPH valve or another valve, had a certain limitation to it. Now that isn't a head. I'm looking at placing heads on here and emitters. So if I want to place a drip valve, there actually is a button over here for drip equipment. And there's my valve. And I'm going to have Katie put the flow in this model description right here. We were just putting this, making touches to this yesterday, and that got left out, but after today that flow is going to be in there. To remind you, that flow is from 0 to 7 GPH. So if it's 7, that means 17 divided by 7, and what is that? And then we'll figure out how many valves we're going to need. Now I did use purposely, that's 3 valves are going to be necessary for this. I purposely used a lot of water so that we could get a lot of water here. If you used less intensive emitters, in fewer numbers or something like that, you would get a different flow. So I do need to break this up into chunks of 7 GPM, and I would break it up with the circuiting command. The type of head is, well, certainly not turf spray. Go down, drip emitter. Drip area right there, and then I'm going to do a zone, and I'm just going to do an area here, and then right click, and what it is, that has 11.5. 11.5 is beyond our 7, so I've got to break this up in some fashion. So I'm just going to go back up to here and quickly break it up. I'm going to do a new zone. Let's say I pick this half of it and see what I end up with. That's 6.89, so actually that's fitting. So it looks like half of this is going to be on one valve, half on another valve, and I'd figure out how these areas are, etc. So I would use that circuiting. Circuiting with drip can be very, very important, and it's reading into the XREF where the plants are, what their container size is, and how many emitters of a certain type for those container sizes, and that's where it's getting that particular flow, which helps you out, kind of automates that. So I can just turn off this particular layer. I know what it's going to get. Let me put in my valve and put that to there. But first I want to put in emitter. This is area for drip emitters. Let's pretend I have other emitters going on here. So I'm going to go back to this thing, which is the heads and emitters. There is my area for drip emitters. I'm going to move over a little bit to just individual emitters, and that's that one GPH emitter I had, and there's different flows, and just to get a lot of flow I'm going to go to the 4 GPH and place it in there. And where is it going? It's going to go in here, and maybe I'm hard piping to these, and it could be all of those because I'm going to get a different symbol for them. If I pick a 2 GPH, I'm getting a different look. So you can mix them up. You can use anything from the half to the 4. Each one of them is going to get a different symbol, and you know, let's say I'm going to hard pipe to there, and I'll show you another thing after I size this particular system. So let me put a valve in. A valve is not a head or emitter, it's drip equipment. So I'm going to go to there. There's my valve, and I'm going to put one. I'm just to say where it is. I'm going to put it out here, and it's going to pick up that area, and I'm going to pick one here, and it's going to pick up this particular area. So to connect this valve to these, I got one of two ways I can connect it. It's piping, so I have to go to our piping function right here and click on draw pipe, and I'm going to click on this, and it lights up. Then all I have to do is pipe into an area. Now I can still use of our piping. We have various tools like highlight station, and if I do highlight station and click up, you can see I've picked up that particular area. But I have other areas to also pick up, and the way I would do it is I wouldn't go from here, because if I continue from here and go into this next area, we won't know that your intention is to stop off and feed this area. So what you have to do, if you want to do that, is maybe back up a little bit and then go into that area, and then go from there. You can back up and then go into this area. Now let me do highlight station, and what I've picked up are all of those particular areas. Another thing you can do is, if you wish, is go to this drip equipment and put transition points in. So, and we get this target because I want to know how many feet is away from this transition point, because just to kind of keep you attuned to scale. This is a temporary thing. If I were putting in this one kind of U-shaped area here, I might put one up here and one down there on that, and I'll just get rid of this piping here, pretend I didn't have it, if I'm using pipe transition points, and you don't have to. And I'm going to put some pipe transition points. This little planted area, this is actually a wall around here. This is very separate, so I would put one in there. This is the same thing. It's totally isolated from the others. I have to put one in there, and of course any island I would have to put one in there. And again, you don't have to use these. You can just pipe into them. But if you want to tell the contractor what your thoughts are exactly, you could use them. If I did use them, what I would do is just like I'm piping the heads, you can see I picked that up, and then they turn yellow when you pick them up. And then, of course, if you're going to a footing, it will be green. And if I went to a pipe, it would be, a different color, magenta. But I can tell I'm picking their magenta like that. So it's kind of telling you. And then always use this little function called highlight station. And that's going to highlight what it's connected to, just to assure you, did I do that correctly? Of course, these individual emitters, all I'm doing, in fact, I think what I would do is probably just run one line all the way down, and then just start, breaking it off in some fashion and piping it into there however I wish. Something like that, but I have to go to each individual head. If I'm hard piping to each individual head, that makes sense, but you can tell what's going on, because yellow means I'm hitting a head, and the color of cyan means I'm hitting a pipe, or green means I'm hitting a fitting, that kind of thing. So I hard pipe to all of those. Again, I would use this highlight station function to highlight what heads I've hit, which shows me what heads I haven't hit too. So I go, oops, I forgot to hit these, so I would get those in there. Now, if I size this now, and let me do that, I'm just going to go to size lateral. I can pick a valve, or I can right-click for all. I think I'll just right-click for all on there. And I want to label these valves. I just kind of want to see what the particular flows are that I have. This one's not going to be very much. It's only a half. I hardly picked up any heads on there. But and of course, that's a half GPM. When we were looking at these, we said, oh, is it a half, a 1, a 2, or a 4 GPH? We've already converted that to GPM on there, because on a valve, you want to know the flow in relation to its GPM to keep it standard with the rest of the system. But as you're placing it, you're thinking GPH on here. So I have 6.89 going in here. Now, what you can do, if you wish, you can place these individual emitters, these ones that I put up that were hard piped. I'm going to pick a 4 GPH, and I'm going to place some of those within this. Now, they are not hard piped, or they are. If I hard pipe to them, maybe I'm hard piping from a different valve, and this system would not know they're there. You know, this system of this valve. If I hard pipe those individual emitters to another valve, they're separate. Or if I just drop them in here, wherever I want them, you know, there's individual special trees or something going on, they're going to be picked up within this whole area. This drip tubing that's running all over is also going to pick those up, because what I'm going to do now is size this particular valve, and now it changed to 7.8. So this is picking up two different things. It's picking up the area for drip emitters, looking at the plants, assigning a number of emitters of a certain type to it, and it's picking up any individual emitters I happen to put in there and do not pipe to another system, which can be handy because you got, here's an area, and you got these 4 existing mature trees, and you want to handle them differently with a completely different type of emitter, whatever. Go ahead, and they'll be picked up in here, or go ahead and do it and hard pipe to them, and they'll be 2 different systems. So the only other thing we have left to do is basically run a schedule, and I'm going to run a schedule, and here's drip. And what you know what I do so often is I'll undo, if I'm doing drip, I'll undo everything else. And because the drip schedule I'm going to show you, and I didn't assign details to it, but there could be a detail assigned to those, is actually a pretty big schedule unto itself. And if it were just drip, I think I would double-click on this and call the schedule a drip irrigation schedule, let's say. You don't necessarily always have to do this. So the title now says drip irrigation schedule. And maybe I got other kinds of heads. Maybe I just, for convenience area on my sheet that I have available, I don't want to run an entire schedule because it makes it really massive. So technically you can separate the drip. So what I've got is I've got 2 of these control valves, and this is a description of it. I've got 5 of these pipe transition points, and of course if you assigned a detail to it, it would show up here when you place it into your drawing set. Here is that threaded emitter that I have here, the individual emitters, so it shows them all here, and it says, you know, you've got the 5 different types, or the 4 different types on here. There's a total of 31. It doesn't break it down into which ones there are, but you could do that if you ran this to a spreadsheet. It would break it down. And lastly, I have some areas to receive emitters, and notice it says here's the emitter, and then here are emitter notes. 1-gallon plants to receive 2 of these, 5-gallon plant 2 of those, 15-gallon plants 4 of those, and there's a certain number of square feet. It's not breaking it down into the number, but it gives you a real good leg up on what is expressed, and expressed very, very quickly on there. and quite frankly, let the contractor do a little bit of work to earn his contract, let him figure out exactly what's needed. But you're very clear as to the intent of your drawing, but at the same time, you're doing this very, very quickly and not drawing a bunch of little squiggly lines and not drawing little individual emitters taking a massive amount of time. This is clear as a bell as to what it's doing, especially if it's coupled with a detail that's appropriate. And it does it in a way that is quick and easy for you. And to me, that's the best of all worlds on there. And plus, you know what? If you could show the squiggly lines, you actually could turn off this hatch pattern and say, well, I want the contractor to do a little from this transition point swiggle up here. You know what? They're not that bowing to you that they're just putting in this drip tubing. They're not going to look carefully at what you got and put it in exactly like that. They're going to pretty much do it the way that makes sense and is fast to do the job. So I think this really works to do it with hatch pattern. So basically that is putting in their particular system. Katie, do we have any questions on this so far? I would like to turn it back over to Travis. If Crystal?
There are no questions so far.
Okay.
And
if Crystal could turn it back over to Travis, and
it's coming back over to Travis right now.
All right. So the emitter on the left is our desert camo, and the emitter on the right is our mulch camo. It's somewhat difficult to see, but the mulch camo has small black specks, some darker brown specks mixed in with the brown color itself, and then the desert camo has some black specks mixed in. It's the base color is lighter, has some black specks mixed in with some gold and silver specks and some other brown specks. And here's a picture of the desert camo actually installed. So you can kind of see how it blends in with the rocks around it.
Somebody who's very sensitive did this, I can tell you. That looks cool.
All right.
Very nice. Do you have a picture of the other types?
You know, I do not on an installation.
What was the other types?
But you know
again?
what? We'll
just to refresh my memory, what were the other types?
mulch camo, which is a darker brown that matches a standard mulch.
So there's desert mulch, and wasn't there another one, or?
And then our standard colors are color coded by flow rate.
Okay, gotcha. That's very good. Do you have anything else to add, Travis, to all of this?
You know what? I did neglect to mention that all of our half-inch threaded products are Teflon free. We manufacture the screen, the emitter screen, with self-sealing EPDM material, so the emitters just thread right onto the pipe thread and do not require Teflon tape. So it saves some labor for the contractor.
Oh. Mm-hmm. And I know you didn't make a big point of it, but where are these made?
I'm sorry, Dave?
Where are they manufactured?
Oh, 100% of our product is manufactured here in Fontana. So we bring in the raw material, the plastic pellets, and ship out emitters and hose.
I like
all
that
in-house
a lot.
Right here.
I like that. Well, I think that does it for our meeting. I appreciate everybody coming to it, and we're going to make this available and save a recording of this onto our website. So I appreciate Travis coming and becoming a supporting member of Land Effects to allow you to have this product available for your specification. We really need this support from all the manufacturers because it's really a team. Land Effects, the CAD engine, the manufacturer and the specifier, we're all doing the same thing together, and that is to help our environment and help our products. So I appreciate GPH joining the Land Effects team of supporting manufacturers. With that, I thank everybody for coming, and we're done with this particular webinar. You can always email us or phone us if you have any other questions, or go to GPH's website if you have any questions on their product. And thanks very much for coming.